Chances are you didn't notice that being heterosexual, straight, there was no need for that to be rebranded and packaged as something that it's not in order to sell you something that doesn't reflect reality. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? In other words, people wouldn't recognize an agenda if it was shopped around in the social engineering platform, social media. If it was paraded around on the box, television. If it was seeded to the public sphere in terms of jargon, as well as fill in the blank, most of you probably can't, but let's think in terms of colors, the color palette, in terms of sigils, symbols, iconography. Have you ever seen all those flags associated with that community, associated with, all things, alphabetical? Here's a shortcut to thinking. Let's think about healing, sustaining food. Think about fruit and how good fruit is for your diet. Ironically, since we're talking about fruits, right? Think about the colors you see in nature. They're vibrant colors, are they not? What do you see in terms of the colors used in the alphabet flags? They're dead, drab pastels. It's very telling if you use your brain. They get you at every fucking bend if you aren't thinking for yourself and you're, we can, how should I dress it up? Your moral compass? Maybe that's how I should put it. If you don't have a moral compass and or a will of your own, you're probably easily taken in by things like this. And the chances are you probably support it, which means you're promoting an agenda, a social engineering agenda, in place to negatively impact everyone. And I do mean everyone, because the goal is control, and you would know this if you pulled your head out of your ass. When a group of people are wildly out of control, you give them an inch and they take a mile. So apparently, being gay isn't enough, based on what our masters have sold people and they bought into. This is the point of the segment where I crush your dreams. Unicorns relate to rhinos. There are two different forms of rhinos, or at least they used to be. Unicorns don't exist. And in other news, rainbows might make you happy, but they have nothing to do with penetrating the same sex. It's also worth looking back. To be gay meant to fuck the same sex, which also contradicts what people are shopping around these days, because XX and XY define reality. It's a binary system through and through. You get cold, you get hot. You have night, you have day. You have female, you have male. You have yin and yang, motherfuckers. That's how it works. And without that, it wouldn't work. And apparently it works quite well, which is why you're here to begin with. Understand, one too many wet farts have been trained to refute that. Just the same, even hermaphrodites are born with one working sexual organ, typically speaking, which again reflects reality because it's a binary system. Yes, I'm aware gay used to mean happy, and by all rights does mean happy and not sleeping with the same sex. Another corruption in terms of social engineering jargon people bought into instead of looking into. Another way you could think of it is people are devoid of creativity. They couldn't cook up a word that defined what they were up to. Instead, they had to hijack something that had meaning. This is when I make some of you scratch your head. There have always been some queer or gay people out there. A percentage, a small percentage. Because the point is to perpetuate the system, and that's not how most people shake out naturally. If the environment is oversaturated with estrogen, and anywhere you turn there's propaganda manipulating you, well, you might see what we see today with this social engineering trend. But prior to that, it did not shake out naturally, now did it? You can refute it all you want, but it didn't. Which means what I'm alluding to holds water and reflects reality in stark contrast to what people are shopping around. Now, to shake you up, and like I said, make you scratch your head, there's nothing wrong with a percentage of people doing what they do, so long as it doesn't disrupt the whole. There isn't. There's always been some cross-dressers out there. Some gender-bending bullshit. So long as it doesn't disrupt the whole and become a disharmonious element or aspect of the system you and I are a part of. It's a symbiotic system. This is wildly out of hand. It is a problem, and the only way for you to appreciate that is to think about it. To truly think about it, which means you'd have to think multiple steps ahead. You'd also have to dance backwards in time and try to appreciate, why has this been sold to the masses? Why were they manipulated to buy into this? And when you start looking back, you're going to see numerous stages of this being rolled out. Keep in mind, anything that's well-financed and well-publicized can't be trusted. And our masters are pushing this shit in the programming and everything else you could think of. It's quite telling. Again, if you use the brain between your ears instead of playing follow the leader with everybody else. Most people don't want to stand out. They don't want to do the right thing. It's not unlike watching somebody get the living shit kicked out of them across the street. And these days, people just pull out their phones and video it. But in the old days, people just stand back and usually not do anything to help them either. This is applicable. Most people are following along and doing what they've been told instead of rocking the boat and drawing a line in the sand and, again, having a moral compass, thinking for themselves, comparing and contrasting information available to the public sphere, and doing the right thing. By all rights, doing the right thing. I'm not saying gay is bad. Some of you don't get that. The jargon that people are shopping around is absolute nonsense. What's being done with the pronoun propaganda is absolute nonsense. And those things do not reflect reality. It's important to take this to heart because it reflects reality, unlike what people are shopping around. Cross-dressing isn't a gender. Cross-dressing isn't a race of people. I'll repeat that. Cross-dressing is not a gender. Cross-dressing is not a race of people. Would you agree that a two-faced person who would sooner lie to you, tell you an absolute story, a wild tale, is more likely to fuck things up down the line and not benefit you or I if we're all involved? In stark contrast to somebody who takes the time to assess what does fucking reflect reality, and that's what they speak to. Because they mean well and they're not willing to corrupt what reflects reality. In other words, they're not going to ask you or urge you or try to convince and manipulate you to repeat absolute nonsense in place of what you already know reflects reality. Understand that, by and large, the only folks out there who are gonna take issue with this are people who are not willing to look into it. They bought into something. And that's what they identify with. They're unwilling and or incapable of thinking for themselves and or just absolutely lazy. If you consider what I've left in this message, it leads somewhere, it reflects reality. And I'll do you one better. Look up the Tavistock Institute. It's related to this jazz. It's related to social engineering. And by extension, all of this has to do with eugenics, which is alive and well, and a fucking agenda. This is the point in this segment where people make blanket assumptions and or throw around things like phobia to suit the fact that they bought into something instead of looking into it, and they are not willing to do the right thing. You can be gay, and you can still do the right thing and not use the social engineering jargon, not promote the agendas. Doesn't change the fact. Doesn't mean you can't be gay. And there are people out there who are using their brain in the quote-unquote community before it was hijacked and turned into the LGBT fill in the fucking blank. And some of them see what's going on. Some of them have openly spoke out against this. But the vast majority are easily taken in by social trends. It's how people work. People are easily herded, so to speak. At the end of the day, you decide.